She didn't ask for permission. She didn't even ask for backup. Standing on the edge of the extraction zone, Elena watched the last transport vanish into the cloud cover, leaving her completely alone in a sector crawling with insurgent forces. Her team had written her off, marking her mission as a suicide run, a necessary loss to satisfy the higher-ups. But as she checked her weapon one last time and stepped into the suffocating silence of the jungle, she wasn't thinking about the betrayal. She was thinking about the 4 civilians trapped in the facility 3 miles ahead. The radio in her ear went dead, the static offering a final, cold reminder. Nobody was coming for her. And in that moment, she realized that the greatest danger wasn't the enemy surrounding her. It was the truth about who actually ordered the extraction to leave without her. The rain didn't fall in the valley. It hung in the air like a heavy, gray curtain, soaking through your tactical gear until you felt the weight of every single drop. You are Elena, and right now, the silence is louder than the gunfire that had been ringing in your ears for the past 6 hours. You're kneeling in the mud, the cold biting into your skin, watching the flickering taillights of the transport helicopter disappear into the abyss of the storm. They didn't just leave you behind, they abandoned you. Your commander's voice, cold and detached, still echoed in your mind. Mission objective rescinded, Sergeant. Disengage immediately. But the mission wasn't just a job, it was a promise. You gripped the handle of your rifle, your knuckles turning white against the black steel. You have no map, no extraction point, and no support. You have 3 miles of enemy-controlled territory between you and the underground bunker where the 4 engineers are being held. If you turn back now, you survive, but the weight of what happens to them will stay with you until the day you die. You take a breath, the air tasting like ozone and wet earth. You stand up, your joints aching, and you realize that your internal compass has shifted. You aren't a soldier for them anymore. You're a ghost, and ghosts don't follow orders. Moving through the dense foliage feels like wading through a living, breathing creature. Every snap of a twig sounds like a gunshot in this darkness. You know their patrol patterns. You spent weeks mapping them out before the intel went sideways. You reach the first checkpoint, a rusted-out watchtower that stands like a tombstone in the middle of the clearing. Your heart is pounding against your ribs, a steady, rhythmic thrum that keeps you focused. You see the shadow of a guard moving across the wall, his silhouette dancing in the faint light of a lantern. He's distracted, probably complaining about the rain, just like you were an hour ago. You slide your knife from its sheath. The movement is fluid, born of years of muscle memory. You don't hesitate. You don't think about the consequences. You just think about the objective. As you take him down, the silence returns, heavier than before. You drag the body into the brush, your pulse quickening when you see something caught in the guard's vest. A radio, but not the standard issue one your unit uses. It's encrypted. High frequency, the kind of gear used by private intelligence firms, not the local insurgents. Your blood runs cold. Why would a local militia have high-end tech from a multi-billion-dollar contractor back in the States? You tune into the frequency, turning the dial with trembling fingers, and suddenly, the static clears. A voice cuts through, familiar and terrifyingly calm. It's your commander. The man who told you to pull back, the man who left you for dead. The asset is secured. The sergeant is in place and will be terminated within the hour. Ensure the evidence is destroyed along with her. The ground seems to tilt beneath your feet. You aren't just on a rescue mission anymore. You're walking into a war that you were never supposed to survive. And you realize, with a sick feeling in your stomach, that the people you're trying to save might not be the victims at all. They might be the reason for your execution. You tuck the radio into your vest, the cold plastic burning against your chest like an ember. The realization hits you with the force of a physical blow. Your entire unit wasn't just incompetent or panicked, they were complicit. The coordinates you were given, The intelligence brief, the mission parameters, it was all a calculated performance, a theatrical staging designed to get you exactly where you are right now, isolated, compromised, and marked for death. But even as that terror tries to paralyze you, your training kicks in. You don't have time for a breakdown. You have roughly 50 minutes before they send a cleanup crew to neutralize the scene. You pivot, abandoning the main trail. You know the terrain, but more importantly, you know how they think. They expect you to head straight for the bunker, desperate and blind. Instead, you melt into the swampy undergrowth, moving with a silence that ignores the jagged thorns tearing at your sleeves. Your destination isn't the front door of the facility, it's the ventilation access point you spotted on the reconnaissance drone footage weeks ago. The one your commander explicitly told you was unstable and inaccessible. Now you understand why. It was the only way in that didn't trip the internal motion sensors. It was the only way in that would allow you to see what they were hiding before they could stop you. As you navigate the narrow, sludge-filled tunnels, the air thickens with the smell of coolant and burnt wire. You reach the grate, your breath hitching as you peer down into the main operations room. What you see makes your blood freeze. It's not a hostage situation. There are no captors, and there are no desperate engineers pleading for their lives. Below you, the 4 people you were sent to rescue are standing around a central console, calm and composed, wearing the same high-tech tactical vests you saw on the guard outside. They aren't prisoners, they're technicians, and they're working with a level of precision that suggests they own this place. One of them, a man you recognize as the lead engineer from your dossier, pulls a drive from the main server. He smiles, a cold, predatory expression that doesn't reach his eyes, and hands it to a tall, suited figure emerging from the shadows. The suit isn't military. He looks like he belongs in a boardroom in D.C. He speaks, and even through the thick metal grate, the cold authority of his voice makes your skin crawl. The sergeant is neutralized. The trail ends here. We have the data, and the cover story is prepped. Let's pack it up.
Your grip on your knife tightens so hard that your hand begins to cramp. You were never supposed to save them. You were the fall girl, the heroic sacrifice that would provide the perfect tragic headline to distract from the massive theft of classified technology occurring right under the nose of the military. Your death was meant to be the final chapter of their cover-up. Suddenly, the floor beneath you shudders. A proximity alarm, silent but lethal, pulses a deep crimson across the room. You realize with a jolt of pure adrenaline that the grate wasn't inaccessible because it was dangerous. It was rigged to trigger an alert if anyone ever opened it. The suit below looks up, his eyes locking onto the ventilation shaft with chilling speed. He doesn't look surprised. He looks relieved. He taps his ear, and you hear the muffled sound of a radio transmission echoing through the vents. "We have an intruder in the ducting. Close the sector and vent the hall with halon gas. She's not leaving this bunker alive." The hiss of gas erupts instantly, a sharp chemical sound that turns the air in your lungs to liquid fire. You scramble backward, choking, your vision blurring as the world starts to spin. You're trapped in a metal coffin, the walls closing in, and you can hear the heavy boots of the facility's security team echoing in the corridor beneath you. They know exactly where you are. They know exactly who you are. And as the darkness begins to creep into the corners of your vision, you realize that your only way out is a vertical shaft that leads straight into the heart of the security command center, the one place in the entire facility you should never, ever go. The halon gas is starving you of oxygen, every inhale feeling like you're swallowing shards of glass. Your lungs burn, a desperate fire, but the instinct to survive overrides the agony. You scramble upward, fingers clawing at the metal rungs in the ladder inside the shaft, your strength failing as the world tilts violently. You reach the top, slamming your shoulder into the circular hatch. It's locked. Panic claws at your throat, but you force it down, drawing your combat knife and jamming it into the mechanical override slot. With a guttural scream of exertion, you twist. The hatch pops with a metallic groan, and you collapse onto a hard industrial floor. gasping in the cool, filtered air of the command center.
You're not in a hallway anymore. You're in the brain of the beast. The room is a massive circular observation deck, bathed in the soft, eerie glow of hundreds of monitors. Below you, the engineers, the people you thought were hostages, are working at terminals, their faces illuminated by lines of scrolling code. They haven't noticed you yet. They're too busy uploading the data, their fingers dancing over keyboards with the rhythm of people who have already won. You're shivering, your uniform drenched in sweat and swamp water, but you're alive, and you have a clear shot. Your pistol is drawn before you even stand up. You could end this right now. One bullet for the lead engineer, one for the suit, and the rest would scatter. But something stops you. You look at the monitors surrounding the room. They aren't just showing local security feeds. They're showing live, encrypted broadcasts of every major military outpost in the region. They aren't just stealing data. They're mapping vulnerabilities, creating a backdoor into the entire national defense network. If you pull that trigger, you kill the thieves, but you lose the evidence of what they've already compromised. You become a murderer, and they become martyrs. Their so-called data instantly uploaded to a cloud server that will vanish the moment their heart rates flatline. Your radio crackles to life, not the encrypted line, but the long-range military frequency. It's your commander again, his voice sounding like it's coming from miles away. "Sergeant, we've picked up your signature near the bunker. Disengage. That's a direct order. If you enter that facility, you'll be marked as a rogue asset and engaged by our immediate extraction team." He's not trying to save you. He's trying to keep you out of the room so his team can clear the evidence, which is you, and finish the upload without any interference. You realize then that the extraction team isn't coming to rescue you. They're coming to execute you. You stand up, your legs shaking, and step out of the shadows. The room goes deathly silent. The lead engineer turns around, his eyes widening, not in fear, but in calculation. He doesn't reach for a weapon, he reaches for a button on his desk. "You're late, Sergeant," he says, his voice devoid of any humanity. "But you're just in time to witness the transition." He presses the button, and the wall-sized monitors shift, showing a live feed of your own unit, the people you trusted, the people who were supposed to be your brothers and sisters in arms, landing on the roof of the very bunker you're standing in. They aren't here to rescue the hostages. They're here to secure the upload. The heavy thud of boots echoes from the roof access door, and you know you have exactly 30 seconds before they storm this room. You have the truth in your hands, the enemy in front of you, and the people you once called family coming through the door to kill you for it. You look at the data drive, then at the door, and then at the window overlooking the cliffside. You realize you have to make a choice that will cost you everything you've ever built. The door to the observation deck shudders under a heavy hydraulic blow. They are not knocking, they are breaching. Dust rains from the ceiling as the hinges scream, and you know the team on the other side is the same unit you led through 3 deployments. They know your tactics, they know your weaknesses, they know exactly how you move. You don't hesitate. You dive behind a row of server racks just as the door explodes inward, sending shards of reinforced steel flying like shrapnel. "Sector clear. Secure the drive," a voice bellows, a voice that belongs to your own squad leader, Miller. Hearing his name feels like a betrayal deeper than any bullet wound. You press your back against the humming steel of a server cabinet, your heart hammering against your ribs like a trapped bird. You have 1 flashbang left and a single magazine. You look at the data drive in your hand. This little piece of plastic holds the architecture for a nationwide cyber collapse. If Miller gets it, he brings it back to the base, and the narrative that you died trying to save the hostages becomes gospel. The truth dies with you. "Check the perimeter," Miller shouts. You hear the rhythmic, disciplined stomp of boots advancing. They're using a standard pincer movement, the exact drill you taught them. The irony is suffocating. They are using your own strategy to hunt you down. You pull the pin on the flashbang, counting down the seconds in your head. 3, 2, 1. You roll it into the center of the room. A white, searing bloom of light erupts, followed by the deafening roar of the blast. The room descends into chaotic shouting, the sound of bodies hitting the floor, and the erratic, high-pitched whine of disoriented men. You don't wait to see the results. You sprint toward the main console, your boots sliding on the polished floor. You grab the server lead, rip it out of the drive, and slam your own encrypted bypass drive into the port. The progress bar crawls across the screen. 12%, 24%. "Target is at the console! Suppressive fire!" Miller screams through the haze. Bullets tear through the server racks above your head, raining sparks and shattered glass down on your shoulders. You're pinned. You can't move, you can't fight back, and you can't get the data. You look up and see Miller standing through the smoke, his rifle leveled directly at your chest. There is no recognition in his eyes, no hesitation, just the cold, dead stare of a professional finishing a job. "Drop it, Elena," he says, his voice flat. "It doesn't have to end like this. Just walk away and we'll tell them you didn't make it to the extraction." He's offering you a life as a ghost, a deserter, a coward. But looking into his eyes, you see the patch on his shoulder, the custom insignia of a private security firm, not the military unit you served. You weren't just betrayed by your command, you were infiltrated from the inside out. They have been wearing the uniform of your country while working for the highest bidder. A rage, hot and terrifying, erupts in your chest. You don't drop the drive. Instead, you reach for the secondary fire suppression lever on the wall. It's a failsafe meant for total facility evacuation. It triggers a magnetic seal on the doors and dumps the entire internal coolant fluid into the room. If you pull it, you seal yourself in with them. You trap yourself in a room with 5 of the deadliest operators you've ever trained with, and there is no way out. The progress bar hits 85%. You look at Miller, you look at the lever, and you realize this isn't a retreat. This is a final stand. You yank the lever down with everything you have, and the room transforms into a thunderous, grinding chaos of locking steel and surging coolant, trapping you in the belly of the facility with the men you once called brothers. The sound of the magnetic seals slamming shut is the loudest thing you've ever heard, a deep, metallic thud that vibrates through the very marrow of your bones. Then comes the rush of the coolant, a high-pressure hiss that floods the room, turning the floor into a freezing, slick obstacle course. The lights flicker and die, replaced by the rhythmic, strobe-like pulse of the red emergency beacons. In the sudden, violent shadows, you are no longer the prey. You are the predator in her den. Miller and his team stumble as the floor slickens, their formation breaking. "Target is trapped. Flush her out." Miller's voice is frantic now, stripped of its previous cool detachment. He's realized that you've taken away his exit, and for the first time, he sounds afraid. You don't fight fair. You never did. You slide into the freezing coolant, becoming one with the dark water and the shadows of the server racks. You are moving faster than they are, your body reacting to the threat with an almost supernatural precision. You reach the first operator, a man you trained with for 3 years, and you don't give him time to blink. You take him down with a single, brutal efficiency, silencing him before he can even draw a breath. 60% humidity, 40% darkness. Use your environment. The mantra your mentor taught you in the academy rings in your ears. You aren't fighting soldiers, you're fighting ghosts of the past. One by one they fall, drawn into the dark corners of the command center like moths to a flame. You aren't using your gun anymore, it's too loud, and you need to be precise. You use the tools of the room, the server cables, the jagged edges of the broken monitors, the sheer crushing weight of the environment you forced them into. Finally, it's just you and Miller. He's standing in the center of the room, his rifle raised, spinning in circles, his breath ragged. He's exhausted, his tactical vest heavy with the water, his visor fogged with condensation. "Come out, Elena. You think you're the hero? You're just a stain on the record books. No one is ever going to know what happened here." You step out of the shadows behind him. You don't say a word. The sound of his own heavy breathing is the only thing in the room. He senses you, a shift in the air, a drop in the temperature, and he whips around, pulling the trigger. The gunshot is deafening in the enclosed space, a blinding flash of orange in the red darkness. You feel the bullet graze your side, a hot, searing line of pain, but you don't stop. You slam into him, driving him back into the console. He struggles, his hands clawing at your throat, his face inches from yours. You can see the terror in his eyes, but beneath it, there's something else, a desperate, pathetic greed. "They paid me," he wheezes, his grip weakening. "They offered me a future. What did they offer you? A flag and a grave?" You tighten his collar, staring directly into his soul. "They offered me a mission," you whisper, your voice cold and steady. "And I never fail my mission." With a final explosive surge of strength, you shove him away, and he stumbles backward, tripping over his own boots. He falls into the exposed high-voltage terminal at the base of the main server rack. A brilliant blue arc of electricity jumps from the terminal to his suit. He screams, a sound that cuts through the hum of the facility. And then there is nothing but the smell of ozone and the silence of a tomb. You crawl to the terminal, your side throbbing, and watch the screen. Upload complete. The data, the evidence of their conspiracy, their treason, their entire operation is now being broadcast to a secure, independent server that you had pre-programmed to sync with the Pentagon's highest-level oversight committee. The truth is out. They can't stop it, and they can't erase it. But as you look at the door, you realize the magnetic seal hasn't opened. The facility is going into total lockdown. The entire structure is scheduled for a thermal purge to sanitize the infection. You have 3 minutes before the building incinerates itself, and the only exit is a ventilation shaft you can barely reach in your condition. The sound starts deep in the earth, a low tectonic groan that vibrates through the soles of your boots. The thermal purge isn't a fire, it's a controlled demolition of the entire facility designed to melt every scrap of hardware and every piece of evidence into slag. You look at the digital timer on the main console, 0245. The air is already beginning to shimmer with the heat of the impending core ignition. You can't breathe, and your side is a mess of blood and adrenaline, but you can't die here, not when you finally won. You crawl toward the ventilation shaft, your fingers scraping against the metal floor. Every movement is a battle against the agony in your ribs. You reach the opening, but the exterior hatch is jammed from the pressure of the lockdown. You look back at the room one last time. Miller's silhouette is slumped against the sparking terminal, a grim monument to the price of greed. The room is glowing an angry, unnatural orange. You have 120 remaining. You take your knife, wedge it into the seam of the hatch, and throw your entire body weight against it. Nothing. You scream, a raw, primal sound of defiance, and pull again. The metal groans, giving way an inch, then 2. You squeeze through, the narrow duct tearing at your clothes and skin as you pull yourself into the dark, cramped space. You scramble forward, ignoring the skin peeling off your palms, focused only on the sliver of moonlight waiting at the end of the tunnel. 0030. The temperature is climbing. You can hear the internal mechanisms of the facility beginning to melt, the sound of steel warping like paper. You reach the end of the duct, kick the outer grate, and tumble out into the cool, damp air of the jungle floor. You roll into the mud, gasping, your vision fading into black spots. 0005. You don't stand up. You crawl, dragging yourself behind a thick ridge of limestone, pressing your face into the dirt. 0001. The world turns white. A muffled subterranean thud ripples through the ground, followed by the roar of the mountain itself collapsing inward. A plume of dust and debris shoots into the night sky, swallowing the stars. Then, silence. Just the sound of the rain starting up again, washing the blood from your hands. You lay there, shivering, watching the smoke drift away. They think you're dead. They think their secret died with you. But somewhere, across the ocean, a high-level official is opening a drive that will dismantle an empire. You survived the betrayal, the war, and the fire. But as you look up at the dark, uncaring sky, you realize that the life you knew is gone forever. You aren't a soldier, you aren't an asset, and you aren't a ghost. You're the only person left who knows the cost of the truth. And now, you have to decide. Do you disappear, or do you finish what you started? The mission isn't over. It's just beginning. If you felt that cold sweat as the countdown ticked down, if you've ever wondered what it's like to be betrayed by the very people who swore to have your back, then you know exactly why Elena couldn't just walk away. This story is a testament to the fact that sometimes the most dangerous enemies aren't the ones in front of you, but the ones standing right beside you. If you want to see where Elena goes from here, or if you have a story of your own about standing up to the impossible, hit that like button to let me know you're with us. Subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss the next chapter of this journey. And I want to hear from you. Have you ever been in a situation where you realized you were being set up? Drop a comment below. Let's talk about it. Every like, every share, and every comment helps us keep this story alive. Stay vigilant.